Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology for December 18th through the 24th. So, this week we have a lot of themes that are solar in nature that involve the sun and light and our our commitment and our investment in things as well. So, we're going to be talking about all of that this week and what may come up for us this week and how to navigate through the astrological, psychological energies this week. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and astrologer, and I'm excited to share the astrology of this week with you. So let's talk about it. We start the week as far as the lunar cycle, the lunar cycle being the emotional tone, the ebb and flow of the emotional tone that we experience month to month, month to month, and day to day. So we actually start out with a first quarter moon in Pisces. And so the first quarter moon is the point between the new moon that we had last week and the full moon that is coming up next week. So first quarter moons are within the waxing cycle. So we're in the half of the lunar phase that involves growth and moving forward and has more of an extroverted kind of tone to it. The first quarter moon can have a feeling of making decisions, of do I stay, do I go, do I invest more time in this, or do I redirect myself? There's kind of that emotional feeling tone to it. And it usually gives us a point where we have enough feedback in whatever has begun, whether that is within this monthly lunar cycle since the new moon in Sagittarius on Tuesday last week, or if it's since the previous new moon in Sagittarius last year. So whatever that is, it's about like really now we have more information and hopefully and we can feel more of a sense of confidence moving forward. Sometimes of course there's a sense of feeling like we're not really sure, and I think that is a great time to really sit with what it is that we want during this first quarter moon in Pisces. This first quarter moon in Pisces is exact on Tuesday, the 19th, so it's pretty early in the week. And then the moon continues to move through Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini this week. Again, all in that waxing growth orientation. Now, another piece of what's happening this week is that Venus in Scorpio will make an exact opposition to to Uranus. So Venus opposite Uranus, Venus in Scorpio, Uranus in Taurus. And there's a couple of different things that I think about this. So, of course, Venus is a symbol of relationships, beauty, aesthetics, sexuality, sensuality, money, self-value, self-worth, and ultimately the things and qualities that give us a sense of ease and peace and joy, the things that we're drawn to, that we find enticing or attractive. And then, of course, the polarity of that, the things that we have an aversion to. Venus also tells us about. So like a planet that's highly relational, Venus is also about healing as well and things sort of coming together and integrating healing opportunities. Now, Venus being in Scorpio, there is an emphasis around all of these topics in where they happen in a Scorpio type of way. And so Scorpio is a fixed sign. It's about going more deeply into something. It's about developing something. And it's a water sign. So water signs are about emotions, connections, relationships. And of course, Scorpio is known to be or to value deeply bonded connections and emotional immersion, and to like really go into what is below the surface, what is deep and meaningful, and what is authentic. I think that's a big theme with Scorpio, and then also with this particular transit is authenticity. And I'm saying that because it is Venus, which is about our self-value, self-worth, what we find attractive and beautiful and alluring, which to some extent tells us what we resonate with. And Scorpio has this way of being that is intensely interested in what is true and what is the root, um, what is the no nonsense, no bullshit truth about something. And then this placement, Venus and Scorpio, is opposite Uranus, which is about, which is really a planet that is oriented around one's truth, integrity, authenticity. Uranus also has a theme around freedom, independence, self-autonomy, being able to choose what it is that you do, and that coming from a place of integrity, that coming from you as a unique individual who decides what it is that you want to do versus doing something because that is what's expected of you, or that is what the culture or family system or whatever it is, that is sort of what the tradition is. Uranus wants us to find our own path toward something or through something. And so these are themes that may come up with Venus, Uranus this particular week. And this, I think, may be something that has kind of been building too, because Venus has been in Scorpio approaching Uranus, and then it's exact this week. So you may have heard me say nothing happens in a vacuum. So like this particular week, and even the astrology that we're experiencing, there is a lead up always. And so whatever maybe has been happening the past couple of weeks, there may be a sense of culmination around situations that involve Venus themes, love, relationship, beauty, sexuality, money, self-worth, and our sense of independence and freedom, and our ability to express in a way that feels free, and to be in relationship, Venus, in a way that is deeply bonded, Scorpio, and then also allows for our own individual authenticness to exist in that relationship, which is Uranus. So I think those are some of my thoughts. I'm curious on how you may experience this as the week goes on. I think Venus and Scorpio can be somewhat of an intense energy, and it can also have a potential for a lot of healing as that which has not been uh, spoken or said or even realized, as that comes up for air, that can actually have a very healing effect. Again, as you know, hopefully that happens in a space that where we can digest it, because I think Scorpio is also about digesting the things that have been unconscious or hidden, and that takes a certain time and process. Okay, so also this week we have the solstice. So the solstice is when the sun moves into either Cancer or Capricorn, depending on the time of year. In this case, it happens to be the sun moving into the sign of Capricorn. And so this is happening Thursday, the 21st of December. And the solstice is important because seasonally, it is a maximum amount of our day or night hours. And this depends on which hemisphere we're in. So in the northern hemisphere, we have a maximum of night hours. We have the longest night that we're going to have. And then the nights become shorter going forward after the solstice. In the southern hemisphere, they're having the longest day. And going forward, the days start to become shorter after this. And so like everything with astrology and even with nature, I would say to a certain extent, we can make meaning, we can create symbology from that, and we can use that to help ourselves align with what is happening in nature, because we're a part of nature. So, so again, depending on which hemisphere you're in, and even your your environment, this is going to be different for everyone. And it's this point, regardless of hemisphere, where there's a maximumness of light or dark, of day or night. And so we look at this in a way where there has been a maximum output of something or a maximum extension of something. And then there's this moment of that like the fullness of it. It kind of feels like almost a full moon sort of effect for me. And then going forward, literally the day after the solstice, there is a winding down or a swinging in the opposite direction and a movement towards balance where we'll have one of the equinoxes after the solstice in several months, in many months. So I would wonder, is there anything in your life that feels like there's been this maximum extension or something that's been sort of swung to the maximum capacity? And what in your life is going to, swing back in the other direction? And maybe nothing, I don't know. But this is just kind of the energy tone. And I think there's also this element of being very much in the experience of the day or the night and noticing that contrast and noticing how we're feeling in the environment that we're actually literally in. And what else did I want to say about that? Oh, yeah. So what's also interesting is, so the sun is moving into Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And in this case, the sun will just happen to be making an aspect to Saturn in Pisces. It'll be making a sextile, which is a subtle, harmonious aspect. So I think there's also this element of support from Saturn in this case, because the sun is moving into the sign ruled by Saturn and it's making an aspect to Saturn. So there's this support around structure, responsibilities, boundaries, and foundations, which are all Saturn kind of things. Now, of course, wherever the sun is, that creates a light, an opportunity for more consciousness, for putting our conscious awareness towards something in particular. And that's going to be the house where Capricorn is in your birth chart. And so that's an area of life that over the next month is going to get illuminated, maybe a little more attention. And it's just going to be one subtle way in which we have more awareness or consciousness on one particular area of life. And so if you want to look at what that is for you, you can find out where Capricorn is in your birth chart and what that house means. Now, also involving the sun is that the sun and Mercury will make a conjunction on the next day, on Friday, the 22nd. So this is also in Capricorn. And when so I'll say, so we're still in Mercury retrograde, right? So that began last week. And always Mercury retrograde is about 3 weeks or so at a time. We typically have about 3 or so Mercury retrogrades in one calendar year, and each of those is about 3 weeks at a time. And within each Mercury retrograde, each 3-week process, there will be a point in the middle where the sun and Mercury conjunct, where they come together at the same point in the zodiac. And so this is happening this week. And this tends to be seen as an auspicious time during the Mercury retrograde period, where there is more of a sense of clarity or knowing or illumination. It's kind of like, there's this whole 3-week period where we're rethinking, we're contemplating, we're going back and looking at things. And then there's this like light bulb moment where things come into clarity. This is the sun and Mercury conjunct, or conjunct is another way of saying that they're together at the same point, the same degree in the zodiac. And so this is a point of illumination, a point of clarity. Of course, Mercury and Capricorn will also sextile Saturn in Pisces. And so there's a lot here that's around supporting our sense of insight and clarity and illumination, and that Saturn is involved in this process too, as far as creating structure, looking at our commitments and our boundaries, and looking at our foundations and what helps us to feel strong and confident. And um, and I think also just, when I think about Sun Mercury, there is a certain sense of um, insight here where it's like, okay, now I know, like, it may not mean that everything in your life just clicks and falls together effortlessly. It's more about you having a clear mind around things. And so that's kind of the feeling tone, especially of this day of Friday the 22nd. Now, what happens immediately after that, again, this kind of happens on the same day. It's all like very one right after the other. On Friday the 22nd, after the Sun and Mercury conjunct, Mercury, still retrograde, moves back into Sagittarius. And so I think this is an interesting shift from Mercury with the Sun and Capricorn. It's making a sextile to Saturn. This feels like very clear and grounded. There's a sense of stability. And then Mercury moves back into Sagittarius, where it will be with Mars in Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius has this more, it's a mutable sign, it's a fire sign, it's much more dynamic, it's much more fluid, it's much more concerned with looking at the big picture and exploring new ideas. Sagittarius in general tends to be traditionally a more challenging placement for Mercury, because Mercury likes to focus on what the next thing is right in front of you. And then Sagittarius is like, no, let's look at the bird's eye view of things. So there's kind of this like, sense of clarity, and then like maybe not being able to implement that, or even, I don't know, like maybe getting new information where you're like, oh, okay, things are not as clear maybe as I thought that they were. And I don't think that discounts the previous clarity, but I think it's like, we're always getting new information. And that may be the case this week, where it's this evolving process of gaining more insight into what it is that is actually going on here. I also want to say that Mercury and Mars together in a sign, in Sagittarius in this case, this is a very dynamic and particular kind of energy, because Mercury is about communication, the voice, speaking, teaching, learning. It's also about divination and our connection with the divine through symbolic means. And it's also about business as well. Mars is about being direct, being decisive, acting from inspiration or instinct, being very clear, being sort of like cutting or directive. Those are also kind of Mars keywords. Mars is also about our physical, muscular kind of body. So it's about literally taking action towards something. When I see Mercury and Mars together, this tends to look like if it's in a birth chart, for example, it usually looks like a person who is very interested in and maybe even good at argumentation. Like they have a very sharp, clear, quick mind. And there may be an ability to like really have concise and direct and very specific what's the word I'm using? I want to use like and argumentation is the only word that's coming to mind right now. But when I say argumentation, I don't mean arguments like fighting, although of course that can definitely be the case here. But argumentation, in as in like debating and like having this flow of conversation where there's kind of this like arguing over different points of view or different ways of thinking about things. I think Mercury Mars can even be a symbol of negotiations, and like where it doesn't have to be where there is a sense of anger or malintent or frustration even, but there's kind of this like warriorness through words here. And then of course, sure, Mercury Mars can definitely be agitation, frustration. I think that really depends on your temperament and what's happening in your life. If there already is a potential for frustration, agitation, if that's already there for you, then I would look at ways in which you can look at the situation from a different angle or a different vantage point, or even how you can take care of yourself to allow for a productive use of your energy, because it may not be to actually engage in an argument. It might be productive or needed for you to stand up for yourself in some way, and only you know what the right thing is for you in your life in a case by case situation. Okay, but yeah, I think that's like a very, and I'm emphasizing this Mercury Mars situation because this is really present for a bulk of Mercury's retrograde process, and Mercury and Mars will actually conjunct next week, but we'll talk about that next week. Um, and just a reminder that Mercury will station direct, which means the retrograde will end. That happens at 22 degrees of Sagittarius on January 1st. So really for from this week, the 22nd, until the 1st, Mercury is with Mars. So there's this theme around standing up for yourself, fighting for what you believe in, Mars, and using your voice. And again, doing so in a way that feels authentic for you, that feels right for you and feels needed at this point in time. Okay, so let's move to the tarot. While I'm shuffling, I'll let you know that the next full moon, so the next two lunations that are happening, next full moon is at 4 degrees of Cancer on Tuesday, December 26th. That will be exact at 4:33 p.m. Pacific time. And then our next new moon is at 20 degrees of Capricorn on Thursday, January 11th at 3:57 a.m. Pacific time. Okay. So I'm pulling 3 cards as usual. If you have a particular question or situation or scenario that's on your mind, on your heart, you can hold that in your awareness. And relax your body, feel into your body, feel into your breath, find a sense of grounded relaxation if you can. And if there's a number between 1 and 3, symbolizing that one card may be an answer for you in particular, you can do that now as well. Okie dokie. So one card that this is just an extra that I pulled that popped out initially is the World. And I just took this as a reminder that we are because this is the end of the calendar year, there is this sense of culmination with things, and to also trust that and to know that, next year is a brand new year. And there can be sort of this rush towards that moment. And the World card reminds us that we're exactly where we need to be in the point of culmination, wherever that is. Okay. So first card is the Four of Wands, with the keyword being abundance for me in this particular deck. And in this card, there are four wands, and there's what looks like a matriarchal family. There's an elder woman and what looks like an adult woman, and then a youthful person. And uh, the Four of Wands typically is a symbol of celebration and unions, parties coming together, but like not even necessarily parties is like it's just for fun, but parties to celebrate unions, to celebrate coming together, whether that is community or a union of one or more people coming together in a meaningful way. This is like this really feels like a ritual or a moment or a celebration of folks coming together. And of course, you know, we're in for many of us, we're in the holiday season. So that might be a bit of what's happening here. But this card is really about celebration and coming together. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. I also pulled the Seven of Swords. And so the Seven of Swords usually comes up when a person is trying to take a shortcut or to do something in a way that's kind of like secretive or like take advantage of a situation, kind of like do things in a way that's like you know, or how do I say it? What am I thinking here? What's that saying? You ask for forgiveness instead of permission. It's kind of that it's kind of that kind of feeling. And when I'm talking about this card, I'm thinking about Venus opposite Uranus, where it's like Venus and Scorpio is like, I want what I want, and so I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get it. So this may be you, this may be a scenario or situation that you're in. But I think it's really interesting that it's coming up in the middle as like a continuation of the Four of Wands, which is about a coming together situation. Okay, so the third card, we're gonna like tie these together in a moment, so hang in there with me. The third card is the Five of Swords. This is very interesting. Seven of Swords and Five of Swords. Five of Swords is when it's this feeling of maybe you win. What's that saying? I'm like all the sayings right now, I guess, right? It's that saying where you win the battle, but you lose the war. I'm not super a fan of that analogy, but it's kind of like this feeling of maybe you win an argument, but it like you're like right, but it causes harm to the relationship. And so is it really worth it? It's like that kind of feeling. And when I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about especially the Mercury Mars aspect that we talked about, where in relationship, especially relationship with family or with people that you're very close to, that you have this deep connection with, um, it's kind of like, yeah, like you might be right, but do you want to be right? Or do you want to have a, um, you know, a connected relationship? And I think like there's something happening here, and this could be like part of this involving a lot of us seeing family more around this time of year than normal. But there's this thing around folks coming together in a celebratory manner like this card, the Four of Wands, is it feels like very cross-generational to me. So actually this could be, maybe this is not a literal situation in the material world. This is maybe if you feel connected to working with your ancestors or your lineage, or even becoming aware of the psychological family systems patterns that are happening in your life, that are not necessarily from you, but that are a part of your family lineage that has been passed down. That might be a little out there, but I hope you get what I'm saying. So this might be more about family patterns that you notice or that are coming more into your awareness. And there's something here around like behavior that's like passive aggressive or indirect, or kind of like maybe it's like not even safe or productive to be direct or to be upfront. That might be a possibility. And then there's something here around like uh around forcing the issue, and that doing so might be detrimental to relationships. And I'm having like, this feels like really difficult to talk about, even because um when I'm looking at this, it's like, and I'm also thinking about Venus opposite Uranus. It's like there is a need sometimes um to use our voice and to name something, whether that's an experience that we're having or something where there is an injustice, something that's happening. It is important to speak up and to be clear. And there's something here where if it's done in a particular kind of way that makes the other person or other people feel demeaned or rejected, that can actually have like a defeating kind of effect, that can have a harmful effect on the relationship. And sometimes that needs to happen. But what this spread is saying to me is, um, how can we be in our own integrity and do so in a way that also helps us connect with others, and so that we feel good about we're taking the stance or the position or expressing in a way that feels clear and upfront and transparent, while also being allowing the other person to have their own experience as well, and allowing for you to come together in union, in partnership, versus an over under kind of power dynamic. I hope that makes sense. If not, that's okay. I hope that you've enjoyed this weekly forecast. I do want to say thank you so much to those of you who have left a rating or a review where you listen to your podcasts. That it means a lot to me because it helps other folks who are searching for astrology podcasts to find this one. So I really appreciate that. And I wanted to let you know that I'm also hosting a workshop, a 2024 astrology forecast and astro planning workshop next year, Tuesday, January 16th. It'll be happening live and it's also recorded. So uh, it's Tuesday, the 16th of January at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And so this will be really cool because we'll be looking at in depth the most influential planetary alignments. So, like outer planet transits that are happening in 2024, the retrogrades, the eclipses, and also with the idea of how to not just know what's happening in the sky collectively, but also how to ground this in your birth chart, and to really prepare yourself and use this as a setting intentions for the most success and love and abundance, or whatever it is that you're wanting to move towards in the next year. So I'll have more info on that below on my website, theastropsyche.com. I'm wishing you a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.